As climate change continues to wreak havoc all over the world, President Cyril Ramaphosa will officially open the National Treasury Climate Resilience Symposium 2024 in Pretoria. The three-day gathering will be held under the theme Moving the Needle on Climate Change and Just Transition, the role of the National Treasury. Our reporter Kailihle Kumalo joins us now. Kailihle, always a pleasure to see you talk to us about this symposium, some of the issues to be addressed, and of course those on the guest list, including the President.
Well, very much so, Leanne. It's bound to be a very interesting 3 days in Pretoria as the symposium really will just shine a spotlight on a raft of issues. As you know, the climate change really continues to be a burden, especially for the African continent, where it's disproportionately affected by climate change. And when you look at the contribution in terms of the greenhouse gases, Africa is really still contributing that paltry amount. But when you look at the ramifications on the ground, they're quite severe, where we've seen prolonged droughts in certain parts of the country, but also where we've seen incredible flooding, and also pointing really to this very serious concern where from time to time you have the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calling it's an existential crisis that cannot be just ignored. So all countries really should put concerted efforts in addressing this issue. But also we know that, Leanne, for South Africa, the issue around just energy transition, where South Africa is working with a number of Western countries trying to decarbonize South Africa's economy, where we know that our electricity, the bulk of it is still from the coal-fired power station. So this is one of the ways really of trying to cap these very dangerous effects from climate change.
Let's perhaps look at some of the other major issues that will be discussed, because when you look at the globe and the world, the small amount that Africa actually offers in terms of what it's doing to the environment in comparison, as you alluded to, is it almost pales in comparison. Perhaps we can talk about that and Africa's contribution to the global problem that the world is seeing.
Especially because we know, Leanne, that when it comes to the greenhouse gases contribution by the African continent, we're looking at roughly about 14%, but the very impact on the ground has been very quite severe, whether you're looking at issues around food security, where you look at the displacement of the people. So those are some of the major concerns, but also when you quantify also the losses and the damages that have been suffered by the African continent, it's quite a very enormous impact. But this will really afford an opportunity to the policymakers and also the climate change experts to have an opportunity really where they look at South Africa's programs in terms of dealing with this particular phenomenon, but also in terms of, for example, the update around the mainstreaming of the programs in terms of making sure that we tackle climate change heads on. And of course, at the very center of this will be the country's National Treasury. As you know, that it's right at the nerve center when it comes to the contribution of funds. So we do understand that the program will get underway anytime. And of course, the President is going to deliver the main address, where he's going to flesh out the country's position, and also just in terms of the way forward, in terms of the mainstreaming of the fiscal policies, in terms of the contribution in tackling this particular issue.
Know that things are getting ready, obviously, to start and get that underway. But of course, the President expected to open this National Treasury Climate Resilience Symposium for 2024. Just Kaya, I mean, this is obviously, this is just telling you how important it is. I mean, if the President himself is there, this is one of the top of his agendas, no doubt, is looking at climate resilience. And this is a theme that, as I'm seeing, so many other countries are actually following in terms of climate resilience and the talk around this.
Well, most definitely, Leanne, especially because when you talk about also the climate resilient economies, that's one of the very key priorities for the South African government, but also really just taking the country into confidence in terms of making sure that we have all these programs really just working out for the greater good of society. But also, most definitely, something that is quite important is that you do have also the Presidential Climate Commission that is really at the coalface in terms of crafting these policies that are quite progressive in terms of making sure that South Africa is able to deal with this particular issue.
All right, Kaya, let's leave it there. Thanks so much for talking to us and just updating us, giving us a bit of a preview there.